I am going to turn the record button on. We're going to switch over to Craig Thorpe. I'm going to try to share my screen. Let me see if I can remember. I'm the host. I should be able to do this. So share screen. Okay, where the blazes did I put that thing? Hang on here for a second. And share screen. All this time. Oh, there we go.
Which ones did you grab there?
Now, did that share? Do we see the Puget Sound Electric Railway image?
Well, no, it's just the
file screen.
File screen. Yeah.
Okay, hang on here.
Files, you might have to open it.
I gotta practice this in my spare time. Did that? Okay,
It's working.
Okay, can you see the image now?
No.
Yeah, no.
Okay, hang on here for a second. Okay.
You have to open the window, then open the share screen.
Right. Yes. Stop share. Okay. I thought I had this window open, guys. I apologize. I need to be okay. There. Now I'm going to share a screen. Come on. Share. Why me? Share. No, and then I'm back to this. Okay, here it is. Did I share it?
Something's coming. Hold on.
Yeah.
I've got that. Seen that picture before.
All right. Well, without further ado, folks, I want to introduce one of our special guests today, Craig Thorpe, noted local painter, and Craig and I are working on a project together, talking about a few of Craig's favorite things or favorite paintings of Craig's and why they're important to him and why they're significant and their value to us from his perspective. So Craig, why don't you tell us a little bit about this painting, what its poignance is for you, and what do you think some of the important takeaways for us are? Go ahead.
Great. Thank you, Jonathan, and good day to everybody. I'm glad to be a part of this gig. I sent Jonathan 3 images, and they all relate to the Northwest Rail Museum in Snoqualmie. And it's quite fascinating that Russ started this whole thing off today by telling the ups and downs of this Talgo preservation thing, because that ties in to what I have here. Now, not directly to this particular scene, but it ties into what the Northwest Rail Museum is doing. And for me, as an artist and illustrator, the opportunity to sort of take what's in the mind of the museum directors and pull that out and make an image is really essential. Any museum operator is going to need connection with the public, and there needs to be, as you all know, this is sort of speaking the obvious, you need to have a connection for public support, political support, and financial support. And that's where image comes in. So as we go through these 3 images, I'll speak to it in that way because they all tie together in support of that museum. And that's typical of the way I'm working with people around the country. So this was the first piece a few years ago that Richard Anderson and the Northwest Rail Museum actually commissioned for me. It's Auburn in early 20th century, early 20s, when Puget Sound Electric was still running the Seattle-Tacoma interurbans. What's fun about these things for me and essential to the museum is the research. And we have some interesting elements of that here. You can see we have the 3rd rail on the lower left-hand corner here near the 523 car, but the trolley pole was also up.
I was going to ask you about that. Yeah, what's the significance there?
They had an extra heavy load, needed all the power they could get. No, this is the overlap zone, and the PSE had 3rd rail all the way from Tacoma to Seattle. But they did not have that in the downtown sections. That's where they put up the pole, and they had the overhead. But there was a transition zone at each end of that overhead. So the conductors would lean out the back door and pull the trolley pole down or put it up, whichever was the proper action at that time. The catch with this particular painting is we don't know where that transition zone happened. So Richard really wanted me to be able, he wanted to be able to use the painting as an interpretive tool to help people understand how third rail worked and how overhead worked. So we think that the overhead transition zone was probably north of this, maybe a quarter of a mile. That would be to our left because we are looking southeast here. But that's why we have the trolley pole up and we have the third rail. What prompted the painting was the fact that the museum was gifted the car body. This is the last known interurban car from the Puget Sound Electric. And it was gifted to them a few years ago, and that's what prompted the commission from me. Richard and I worked together quite a bit to come up with the scene, and we have some historical records that help us understand what the station looked like, and we guess what the color, the cream or kind of a tannish cream with dark brown trim probably looked like. You can see behind that station is the Milwaukee station, and that, of course, that track is Union Pacific now. This right of way where the PSE interurbans are in the painting is a trail. I happen to love this painting because I like interurban equipment. It's just been a part of my life since I was a kid, and I didn't remember much of it at all. There was very little in Pittsburgh left, but by the time I was able to remember things, the Pittsburgh interurbans had been cut back to the shortened versions. But the idea of what the interurban meant to American history and the mobility, and it contributed really to the common good of culture, all of that has continues to speak to me. So Jonathan, do you have any other questions about this particular piece?
No, I think that this is all really interesting, Craig, because I wanted to ask you about that transition, and I would assume that that was a public safety issue, that you couldn't have a live rail in an area where people could step on it.
That's absolutely right. We do have funny records of people and for instance, there was a conductor who would if the train was, I forget which direction they were going, but this guy would occasionally jump off the car and land on the third rail and use that as a springboard to get to the ground. He was taking a lot of chances. He'd go down there to throw a switch. You can see in if you look to the extreme right, beyond that 2-car train, way down there is a switch, and that's where it went back to single track.
Okay.
One other little,
one more, and then we'll take a look at another one. Okay.
Yeah, we're guessing at what downtown Auburn looked like. We really don't know. Very few images of buildings. So the craftsman style architecture shows up in this painting quite liberally because that's probably what it looked like in general. So.
Very interesting, Craig. So I'm going to stop share here for a second, and I'm going to find our next image. And let me see if I can. There we go. I found the next image, and now I'm going to share screen again. So let me see if I can pull this off twice in a row. We should be looking at an artist's rendering of what could possibly be out at Snoqualmie one of these days. Is that right?
That's absolutely right.
And everybody can see this, I hope.
Yeah, and
Hey.
this really is a fun. Did you say something, Jeff?
No, I was just cheering that I got it right on the first
Oh,
try.
well, yeah, good for you. We join you in your enthusiasm, sir. Uh, the museum commissioned an exterior and an interior of this proposed roundhouse building. I don't know how many of you folks have been out to the Northwest Rail Museum, but if you've been to their education center, there are two buildings, actually three, in that their maintenance shop, their education center, and library, and the train shed where they have equipment stored. And what the building to the left is the existing train shed. And there are 3 or 4 tracks in there where they have all kinds of displays. Well, the museum wants to move a lot of the stored equipment, or the equipment that's stored outside, into a really workable interpretive center. So they engaged an architect in Seattle, and they've come up with this sort of contemporary display roundhouse. So what we see here in this is a turntable bit, and all the whisker tracks that go around, and the building itself. There never was a roundhouse there, but the railroad wants to use this as an interpretive tool to display railway equipment. It will also have static displays, and it will also have a model railroad inside of it. So this particular image is typical of this visionary art, concept art that I do, and the medium is different. The previous painting that Jonathan showed you was an oil painting, oil on canvas. These renderings are ink and watercolor.
Oh.
And if you notice, that's kind of ragged around the bottom there, and that's quite intentional to kind of show that this is sort of dreamlike or conceptual. It isn't a firm final plan. Although in this case, the roundhouse building is pretty much like it's going to be. So in the background, you can see we have the main line, or the old Northern Pacific line, there through Snoqualmie. The building to the left, as I said, already exists. That's the display building. And then moving to the right, you could see the interurban car, the 523 that I had in the previous painting. That is there. And the railway would use that car when it's restored, operating on battery power, to go up and down the line. So to the right, of course, is the main building.
This is fascinating, Craig, and I would imagine that for institutions like this museum, the ability to have this sort of visualization must be a real benefit when they try to talk to their community about what the vision is that they're trying to achieve.
Absolutely right, Jonathan. Most people, even though it's a visual age, don't really understand maps, don't understand site plans. Architects, planners, designers use site plans all the time, and that's important. We do need that. But to really communicate it, really get the viewers to get into the scene in a conceptual kind of way, you need a perspective view. And that's what I bring to it. And I bring another kind of a twist on that theme. And I do a lot of these low-level aerials so people could get an overall sense, not just a focused sense in one spot. So you can see here, there's a upper level display or not so much a display, a viewing area. And
like a veranda or something. Yeah, balcony.
That's a veranda, that's right. And off to the left there, those blue little triangular things are tents, and there's the idea for some kind of a little bistro there. You could get your Starbucks and a Subway sandwich or something and go out there and sit up there and look down. There's also the idea in their mind that eventually that you could have public art out there, or it could have band concerts, all kinds of things like that. So it's a very flexible space. On the turn,
Craig, let's look at that third image and then let's look at how this fits into the sort of larger scheme of things quick, shall we? We're
sure. Well, okay,
watching.
before you, can you
Yeah,
go back
yeah,
to
yeah.
this for just a second? Because this ties into what Russ had said before.
Hang on here. Here we go. Reshared. Okay, keep going.
Yeah, so if you can look in the lower right there, you see an interior. This is what it could look like inside this display roundhouse. And off to the left in this rendering is a major model railroad. Now, they've just told us that railroad display, model railroad display, is moving to another section. And if Richard and all of us are able to get these Talgo trains, to get 3 or 4 of those cars, they would go on that second level, right where that glass wall is looking into the model railroad. So I'm doing a pencil drawing now of reworking, doing another layer on top of this to show how that could happen. Okay, Jonathan, you can go to the last piece.
Okay,
now.
yeah, we gotta kind of watch our time here a little bit, Craig. So
Yep, we're done here.
yeah, no worries, no worries. Hang on here. Let me. Oh, it's okay. And now here we go again.
Drum roll, please.
Oh my gosh, yeah, it's so stressful. So now we can kind of see if it looks like I've shared correctly here.
You have.
Now we can see how that facility will interact with this map, because isn't that going to be at number 3?
That is correct. That is correct. And we don't show it in this rendering. I don't remember just the exact sequence of all these pieces, but you see the number 3 right in the middle. That's the existing train shed, and the roundhouse would be behind that, between that building and the highway.
Oh, okay.
This is not done to scale.
I was going to say, yeah. Okay,
This is a concept, and so you see, moving from left to right, we have Snoqualmie Falls Lodge and the falls off to the left. The right of way throughout here is all in orange, and it's somewhat interpretive. It's not meant to be to scale. It's only to give you a sense of what's real. So downtown Snoqualmie, as you know, is much bigger than what I show there at number 2. Number 3 is the train shed and the education campus, and number 4 off to the right is North Bend. It's kind of interesting painting. It's ink and watercolor like the renderings were. The background is kind of realistic, you know, looking at Mount Si up there and the valley. As you get into the foreground, it becomes the scale changes and it becomes interpretive, and so this becomes a handout map, but it's also reproduced on some large panels that are about 3 feet by 5.5, and these are displayed outside at each of those numbered locations, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and they're along the walking and hiking trail. So anybody who's out there can see where they are in relation to the whole of the railway. And
oh yeah, this is great. I always liked map, these sort of aerial maps like this. I was a geography major, folks, before I was an accountant.
Yeah, well, and I love geography. Was one of my favorite subjects in school. So
yeah,
it's that sort of the ability to see land and how all things fit together. So that's just another example. And in the lower left is a pencil drawing of the 924 060.
So does anybody have any questions for Craig at this point, or any thoughts from the gallery? Okay, going once, going twice. So Craig, I'm going to stop the share and I'm going to